Ciao, I'm Mary Ann Esposito. Today on Ciao Italia, we are making for you a beautiful fish chowder, zuppa di pesce, and then a baked fish with tomatoes, lemons, olives, baked in the oven, quick and easy. And to top it all off, wonderful scallops on a bed of spinach with roasted tomatoes and a lemon butter caper sauce. You'll be in fish heaven. Today I want to show you how to make a zuppa di pesce, which translates to a fish soup. Now we live with chowders all the time, and Italians make zuppa di pesce like a chowder different ways. Sometimes the base is tomatoes, sometimes it's fish broth, sometimes it's milk. Today I'm going to do kind of a variation on that. So we have to start with our battuto. And a battuto means that we need to have those vegetables that Italians love to use as a flavor base. It starts a lot of things like sauces and soups. So what are they? They're celery, so you just want some celery chopped up with the leaves. I'm going to put that right in a food processor. You want a carrot, coarsely chopped. You can do this by hand if you want to, but this is the easy way. You want an onion, coarsely chopped. You want some garlic. Those are often called the really critical ingredients to use when you're making any kind of a flavorful base. So now what we want to do is just get those minced up. So I'm going to put them in the food processor and let it go. Okay, that looks good. So now what we have is something called a battuto. See? Battuto means to beat down. So we have beaten down or minced all of these vegetables together, and now we're going to put them in some olive oil and let them cook down until they're very, very soft. So let me get that going. You want about 2 tablespoons of olive oil in a soup pot, and then you want these vegetables. So here are our vegetables. And we want this to go into about 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. We really want this to cook down. So the minced up vegetables are called the battuto, but now we're kind of frying them. That's known as the sofritto. So those are 2 Italian words that you should remember when you're making a flavor base for sauce or for soup. So we're going to let this go, and I'm going to cut up some zucchini for this. You can add a variety of vegetables to any kind of a chowder, but I happen to like zucchini. And my advice to you when you get zucchini is get them small because they're much firmer, they don't have as much water, and they don't have as many seeds. And I think this makes a nice color addition to the dish. So all you want to do is dice up a zucchini. And you want to let those vegetables in the pot cook down until they're soft before you add the zucchini. So we're going to wait a couple minutes. I'm going to put this in a bowl. We'll add that later. But you could add spinach to this. You could add Swiss chard if you wanted to. So I want to flavor this nicely. These are fennel seeds. You see how big they are? These are fennel seeds, and these are anise seeds. What's the difference? Because they taste basically the same. Well, anise seeds really are an annual plant, and fennel seeds come from the fennel bulb, which is a perennial. They both have a licorice taste. This is a lighter tasting licorice. This is a more intense tasting licorice. So I'm going to use the fennel seeds, but if you can't find them, you could always use anise. So I want to make that into a powder. So I have a little spice jar here, my little gizmo. And all I really want to do is whirl that up until it's a powder. See? Looks like that. It's about a tablespoon. If you want to use less, you can. So when the vegetables are soft enough, I'm going to add the zucchini, and then I'm going to add the fennel. And then we're going to add the liquid ingredients. Let's check the sofritto. All right, you see how soft these vegetables are. You can almost mash them with a fork, so you want them really soft, because that's where the flavor is going to intensify. Now we're going to add the zucchini. The zucchini goes in, and with that we add that wonderful fennel. It's going to add a nice flavor to this. So the fennel goes in, you mix this around, and we're going to add some hot red pepper flakes. You can add as little or as much as you like. I like a little bit of a bite to this, so I'm going to add just a handful. Okay, now while this is cooking down, we're going to work with the fish. So let's face it, we live here. We don't live in Italy, right? So they have very different kinds of fish in Italy. But still, you can make a decent fish chowder using whatever local, sustainable fish you can find. If we were having this in Italy, we'd probably be using sea bass, which would be wonderful. But today, we have a little bit of fresh haddock. Or you could use cod, whatever you can find. So here's the fish. And you know, you can find sea bass frozen sometimes if you can't find it fresh. So you can always look for it in your freezer case at your grocery store. So if you haven't, anything's possible here. So just whatever kind of fresh fish you can find. So now we have skinless fish. We have 1.5 pounds. I know it looks a little raggedy right now, but that's okay because we're going to cut it up into chunks. This fish chowder is not going to take very long to cook. So this is very fresh fish because it looks nice. It's got a nice color. It doesn't smell of ammonia. You always want to ask where fish is coming from. So buy local fish. That's looking good. And I kept it in big chunks because it's going to shrink down very quickly. So now we're going to check our vegetables, see where they are before we add the fish. Oh, those vegetables are looking beautiful. And now we're going to add the seafood right on top of the vegetables, just like that. So now we want to give this some salt and pepper. I want to season it nicely, so some pepper. I like to use butcher's pepper for this, but you can use fine pepper if you'd rather. Some sea salt, again to taste. You can always correct this seasoning later. We're going to add, the liquid for this is clam juice, or you could use fish stock if you have it. So an 8-ounce bottle, or if you've made it and have it in your freezer. And you want something that's going to give this a really delicate, creamy flavor. I like to use evaporated milk. So 1 can, 12 ounces of evaporated milk gives this a really beautiful consistency and just makes it really delicate. And then, I really love this. These are called cruschi peppers. See? They come in a bag like this. They're from southern Italy. And I discovered them once when I was in Italy, and I loved them. I actually grew them in my garden and dried them. So they come dried in a bag like this. You can find them online, or maybe in some Italian grocery stores. And why do I add this? I love the color that these peppers lend to this soup. So now, all I really want is to gently give that a little stir, because I don't want to disturb the fish too much. I really want those chunks to stay. Then, being patient, we want to put the cover back on and bring this up to just under the boil. And then we're going to lower it and let it simmer for about 5 minutes. And then I'm going to add some cream to finish it off. Well, if you thought fish chowder was easy enough to do, this is another great recipe that cooks in about 8 minutes. Fish, you know, is very fresh, doesn't need to take very long in the oven. This is going to be an oven-baked fish dish. And you find these kinds of dishes often in Italian restaurants wherever you go in Italy. So I've got an oven baking dish ready with some olive oil. And here we have our fish, which is haddock. So this is what I can get, so this is what I'm going to use. So I'm going to give this some salt and some pepper. Now you could use any kind of white firm fish for this. You want to use salmon, you could do salmon with this. You want to use cod, that would be nice. Flounder would take even less time because it's even thinner than this. So any good flat fish will work for this. Even halibut would work for this. So this is so simple. You put the fish fillets in a baking dish. Okay? Try to fit them in. I'm going to put this one kind of like this because I want them all to lay flat. Then once you have that, you're going to add some vegetables. And this is how I had it in Italy. That was so delicious. The least thing you do to fish is the best thing. And the Italians really know how to prepare fish. So we had tomatoes. And for this, we want to use a beefsteak tomato, not a plum tomato. A plum tomato would be something that you would use for sauce. So slice up a good beefsteak tomato. And for that, I like to use this knife. See, this is my trusty old tomato knife. And you're just going to overlap these tomato slices with the fish and some lemon, some fresh lemon. So that looks good. And then here we have fresh lemon. And all we want to do is slice it in thin slices again. Lemon and fish have a great affinity for one another. If you're in the Amalfi Coast, you see fish dishes all the time with lemon, marinated fish dishes, baked fish dishes. So there's some lemon, and then we have some oil-cured olives. So I'm going to give this fish a little bit of olive oil over the top and brush that on. Make sure you're using extra virgin olive oil. And your oven is on at 400 degrees because believe it or not, this is going to cook in about 8 minutes. If it's a little thicker, it might take a couple minutes longer. So then you take those lemon and those tomato slices and you just kind of overlap them. This is a really big tomato, like that. Put one there and one here. And this is just going to flavor this fish and keep it nice and moist. And I think I need just a couple more pieces here. Let me get another big slice tomato here and some lemon. And again, we want salt over that. Use really ripe tomatoes. Some pepper. See how easy this is? This is dinner in about 10 minutes. You do have time to cook. And then some oil-cured olives over the top. Later on, if you wanted to put some herbs on this, like parsley, that would be nice too. So there it is. Again, just a little smidge of olive oil over the top. You're going to bake this uncovered in the oven, 400 degrees, until that fish easily flakes, or an instant read thermometer inserted in the fish is at 140 or 145. So in it goes. And next up, capesante. Let's talk about capesante. Capesante in Italian means scallops. And you know, I've got so many stories about scallops that I've eaten in Italy. And the best place I ever had them was in Perugia, if you can believe it or not, a landlocked city in the region of Umbria. But when you buy scallops, you want to buy dry scallops, not scallops that have been injected with sodium. A sodium solution that is not going to allow these scallops ever to brown. And we want to get a nice sear on these. So the best thing to do is when you go to the fishmonger, you ask, where are the scallops from? And are they dry packed or water packed? You want dry packed. And you see how nice and translucent they look. So I take them out when I get them home and just put them on some paper towel, because I really want to dry the outside of them so that I can get a nice sear on the scallops when I cook them. We're just going to do this very quickly in a frying pan. So spread them out, and you can let them sit there for a few minutes before you're ready to use them. Sometimes I do this ahead of time during the day. I cover them with plastic wrap, put them in the refrigerator, and then that night I work with them. So there's our scallops. We have a pound of them. They're beautiful looking. And this is the adductor muscle of the scallop. This is the part that allows the scallop shell to open and close. And they really go through the water very quickly. So there they are. So now that we have them, we're going to set those aside, and I'm going to tell you what kind of a sauce we're going to use for this. So we're going to make a lemon caper sauce, something very simple. So here are capers, and you can either buy these in salt, in which case you will have to rinse them off and let them drain really well, or you can buy them in brine. These are capers in brine, and I have to tell you, the best ones come from the island of Pantelleria, which is right off of Sicily. And you can find those in a grocery store. You can get them online or in an Italian enoteca or a salumeria. You can find them. But if you can't find them, then you can go to your grocery store and just find generic capers. So we want to use the capers to flavor our sauce. So for our sauce, we have some butter. So here is some unsalted butter, about 5 tablespoons that we've melted. I'm going to add some salt to it because it is unsalted. In Italy, all butter is unsalted. So we add that. We add the capers. That's the unopened seed pod of a flower that grows in crags and rocks in the Mediterranean. And then with it, we want to have some lemon. So Italians are really big on lemon with fish. So one way to get a lot of juice out of a lemon is to kind of roll it around on your counter first, push on it a little bit. The other way to get a lot of juice out of a lemon is to put it in your microwave for about 5 seconds or so. It'll soften it up and you'll be able to get more juice that way as well. So now we want to, first of all, take the zest. So with a zester, zest the lemon. And that's going to add really nice flavor to this because we really just want something simple here. But we're also going to use some nifty vegetables like spinach and roasted tomatoes. So once you have all the zest off, well, then you want to cut your lemon and juice it. It would be ideal to take the pits out first. So add the juice. A small lemon like this is going to give you about a tablespoon of juice. And that's all there is to it. And this we're just going to keep on warm on the stovetop until we're ready for the scallops after they're cooked. So I'm going to cover that and just let that go back on the stove. All right, now we have to work with spinach. So here we have some fresh spinach. All I did was wash the leaves, put the leaves in a dry saute pan, put a cover on it, and just cooked it down. Then I drained off most of the water. I left some of the water on it because I want to have something that's going to have a little bit of liquid in it with the scallops. So now what we want to do is flavor that. So to do it, I want a couple cloves of garlic. You can just leave them whole, slice them in half, and we're going to take them and put them in our saute pan. All right, we're going to put a little bit of olive oil in our pan here. We're going to add some garlic, turn up the heat, and just press on that, just to flavor that oil. Just want to flavor the oil. And then, once it's flavored, we're going to take the garlic out, and then we're going to add the spinach. We have flavored oil. Now stand back because the spinach is wet, so when it goes in there, it's going to give us a little sizzle. And we really want the spinach just to absorb the oil that's in the pan. And that's all there is to it. So now we can take that out because this is going to be the bed on which our scallops are going to lie. And we're going to set this aside, And I'm going to come back and cook the scallops in the same pan because I'm a one-pot girl. So what I've done is I've just kind of coated the scallops in the flour mixture. So I'm going to put them back on the paper now. And I can tell that they're so fresh. They're nice and fluffy and light, and they're pretty to look at. They're not discolored or yellow. So we're going to heat up some oil in a pan, and all we really want to do is sear these on each side. They really don't need a lot of cooking. So there they are, and while I'm doing this, I should mention to you that I have roasted some cherry tomatoes. So these are just cherry tomatoes that I cut in half, put in a bowl. You want about a cup of cherry tomatoes. Put them on a flat baking dish with some olive oil, and then roasted them at 350 for about 20 minutes or so until they collapse a little bit like this. So that's going to be part of the presentation. So now we're ready to cook the scallops. So we've got to get the pan really hot. So I have some olive oil in a pan, not a lot, and you can see that the smoke is coming up, so I know that that pan is hot enough. And I want to put the scallops in. Don't crowd them. Put them in a few at a time if you have to, because what we want to do is sear them on one side before we turn them over and sear them on the other side. So that's enough of those. And you watch them. You can start to see if a little crust is starting to form on the base, and that's your cue then to turn them over. But don't touch them, because if the pan is hot enough, they're not going to stick. If you don't have the pan hot enough, then they will stick. So you see how they're moving along nicely? They're not stuck, which means that the pan is hot enough. So you see what happens? You get that beautiful sear on the other side. If it starts to look a little too brown, well, then you just want to turn your heat down a little bit. Okay, so now all we have to do is cook the other side, and these are done. So let me show you how this would go when you're eating it. So you put a bed of the spinach down right in the center of the dish like this. Then 4 scallops to me is a nice serving, especially when they're big and huge like this. So add 4 scallops. If you want more, you can add more. But 4 beautiful scallops. And then some of those roasted tomatoes go around the plate. So now you have a lot of different flavor combinations going on. Make sure that the tomatoes are nice and ripe. And by roasting them, it brings out the sweetness of them. So you have the tomatoes. Then we want our sauce. Remember, that's our lemon sauce that has capers in it and the zest of the lemon. Just take some of that and drizzle it. Look at that. Oh my. Sings to me of Italy. Isn't that gorgeous? This is going to serve 4, and then a little thyme or parsley over the plate. So, there you have it. 3 ways to cook fish. Who doesn't want to eat this? Just too beautiful, so I had to take a picture. But here's what we did for you today, dal mare, from the sea, because Italians love fish and seafood. We started with this wonderful fish chowder. And I told you could use a variety of fish for this, cod, haddock, whatever is local, sustainable, and fresh. And here it is, all ready to serve, and it took very little time to make. And then, who can't make this? In 8 minutes, you could have a whole supper. And we started with haddock fillets, but again, you could use any kind of fish that you like that can be baked. And so we have that in a pan with just some olive oil. We sliced up some beefsteak tomatoes, some thin slices of lemon. We put in some olives and let it go at 400 degrees for about 8 minutes. And this fish is tender and ready to eat. And the last thing I did for you were the cape sante. Remember, that means scallops in Italian. And here we dressed them up on a bed of spinach that was sauteed with a little garlic and extra virgin olive oil. And then we added some roasted cherry tomatoes. And until I see you nella cucina again, I'm Mary Ann Esposito. Ciao.